boys and girls. Hello. Hello, people on Zoom. It's nice to see you. I'm sorry that you haven't been watching me set up. I'm, of course, in over my head once again, and I'm running a little bit late. So talk amongst yourselves. Product identification.
Guarda libera, Dios guardó el lobo de nuestra cordera, Dios guardó el lobo de nuestra cordera. Río, río, chillo, la guarda libera, Dios guardó el lobo de nuestra cordera, Dios guardó el lobo de nuestra cordera.
El lobo rabioso la quiso morder, mas Dios poderoso la supo defender. Quisole hacer que no pudiese pegar, ni an original esta virgen no tuviera.
Río, río, chillo, la guarda libera, Dios guardó el lobo de nuestra cordera, Dios guardó el lobo de nuestra cordera. Este que es nacido es el gran monarca, Cristo patriarca de carne vestido, ha nos redimido con sea ser chiquito, aunque era infinito, finito se hiciera. Río, río, chillo, la guarda libera, Dios guardó el lobo de nuestra cordera, Dios guardó el lobo de nuestra cordera.
Muchas profecías lo han profetizado, y aún en nuestros días lo hemos alcanzado. A Dios humanado vemos en el cielo, y al hombre en el cielo, porque te quisiera.
Río, río, chillo, la guarda libera.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My gentles all, and give us room to rhyme. We've come to show activity upon this Christmas time. Activity of youth, activity of age. The like was never seen upon the common stage, and if you do not believe what I say, come in the Arabian Night and clear the way. You at home, I want you to see this wonderful work by Bill Quern of the Turkish Night. Can you guys see this? Yeah. In Kamai, the Arabian Night, come from far lands to fight this fight. I'm rough, I'm tough, and I always have my way. That's why they call me Mr. A. Those of you who have seen the shtick before remember Mr. T? Yeah. This is the replacement for Mr. T because I've got some backlash on Mr. T. And I'm trying to keep up with the times. I am rough, I'm tough, and suave. That's why they call me the Sheikh of Arabi. Suave, chic. I can slow this whole thing down, really. I seek King George, a man of courage bold. With his blood his hat I'll make it run cold. I'm rough, I'm tough, as you can plainly tell. That's why they call me the demon from the Middle East. In come I, the good King George. Bill Quern, a genius artist of Germantown, and now Drexel Hill. In come I, the good King George, a man of courage bold. With my broadsword, my trusty axe, I won this crown of gold. Show me the man that bids me stand, and I'll strike him down with my courageous hand. It is I, the Arabian Knight, come from far-off lands to fight this fight. There are 1,000 more right behind me, but I am only one. 1,001 nights. A little reference there. It's not just entertainment, it's education. I am come from far off lands to fight this fight. I'm rough, I'm tough, and I always get my way. That's why they call me Mr. Stand back, bold slasher, and let no more be said. For if I draw my sword and strike you, surely you will be dead. My head is made of iron. My body is made of steel. My legs and arms are molten brass. No man can make me feel that. Draw your sword and strike, or draw your purse and pay, for I'll have satisfaction before I go away. No satisfaction will you get, and I'm not threatened by your threat. Then battle on battle be our sound. We'll see who is the first to hit the ground. Battle on battle be our cry. We'll see who is the first to die. On guard! Is this too scary for you? Is this too silly for you? Now am I dead. Now am I dead. Now am I fled. My soul is in the sky. Tongue, lose thy light. Moon, take thy flight. Now die, 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 die. Now you say, is there a doctor in the house?
Is there a doctor in the house?
There is a doctor in the house. There is a doctor that can save these noble youths from an early grave, down through England, France, and Spain, around the world and back again. My beard is, I'm a doctor. Around the world and back again. There is no place I have not been. There is no disease I have not seen. And this bottle by my side is known both far and wide. Eli Khan Pin Pon Pain. It brings the dead back to life again. Turkish Knight, don't lose your head. Arabian Night, don't lose your head. Mr. A, don't lose your head. A drop for your head, a drop for your heart. Come on, my boy, and take your part. How do you feel? I feel quite fine, thank you. I pity the fool that thinks I'm dead. That's a line from the other version. King George, don't lose your head. A drop for your head, drop for your heart. Come on, my boy, and take your part. How do you feel? I feel quite fine, thank you. And now, during this Christmas time, there will be no more fights. So, happy Christmas to all, and to all a good and/or Arabian night. Thank you. So, King Arthur was riding back toward Camelot. It was almost Christmas, and it was his custom at the Christmas season to meet with the knights of the Round Table, and there to tell what stories they had, what dragons they had slain, what Turkish knights or Arabian knights they had vanquished, what damsels in distress they had rescued. Arthur had sent his squire on ahead to warn the castle of his homecoming. As he neared the glen by the Green Chapel, a place thought to be inhabited by demons and sorcerers, he heard his name called out. Arthur, King of the Britons. He peered into the glen, but could see no shape of any mortal man. Again, the voice, Arthur, King of the Britons. Arthur dismounted, walked into the glen. As his eyes became accustomed to the light, there he saw a giant of a knight, 3 times the size of a normal man, clad all in green armor, from his helmet to his shoes. And in one hand, that knight held an axe, the blade of which was an ell-rod long and sharp as any razor. If thou art as brave, as thy brave knights say, thou'lt stand against me in some Christmas sport. What sport is that, Sir Knight? The beheading game. One strike apiece, and you may strike the first blow. The knight handed the axe to Arthur. Arthur knelt upon the ground. No, he didn't. He took the axe. The Green Knight knelt upon the ground, took his helmet off his head, bared his neck. Arthur, his honor at stake, took the axe, brought it back down upon the knight's neck with such force that the head severed from the body and rolled across the glen. But the body did not fall. Instead, it picked itself up, dusted itself off, walked over to its grisly head, placed it back upon its grisly shoulders, and laughed a grisly laugh. Ha, 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 my turn. Now the knight took the axe. Arthur, his honor at stake, knelt upon the ground, took his helmet off his head, bared his neck, and listened as the axe whistled through the air, but stopped before it touched his neck. Arthur, rise, I'll give thee respite and a riddle. If thou canst solve the riddle in a year, I'll spare thy life. If thou canst not, I'll have thy head. What is your riddle, Sir Knight? The riddle is this. Of all that can be won or lost, what does a woman want most? Arthur remounted his steed, rode towards Camelot. The sentry spied him, sounded the trumpet. All the knights and ladies of the court came to the tops of the parapets and cheered the king's homecoming. Across the drawbridge, Arthur stabled his horse, went into the room of the round table where all of the knights are ready to tell their story. What Arabian knight they had vanquished, what dragon they had killed, what damsel in distress they had rescued. When it came round to Arthur, he too told the story of the night in the glen. And now, ladies of the court, I need your help. Of all that can be won or lost, what does a woman want most? First, he turned to his bride, Queen Guinevere. Guinevere, oh, my liege lord, there is nothing that I would want except what you would have for me. This was a very long time ago. Each of the women betrothed or married to a knight gave that self-same answer, that they would want nothing except what their husband had for them. When it came round to the unattached women, they had more creative answers. Some said land, some said jewels, some said more land, some said more jewels, some said Sir Gawain, for Sir Gawain was the handsomest and noblest of all the knights. And yet, after every woman had spoken, Arthur knew he did not have the answer that would save his life, because it did not burn his heart within him. And so he said, I shall go throughout my kingdoms, England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, Brittany, and ask every woman that I meet the answer to the riddle until I find the one that burns my heart within me. And so it was. He went from pillar to post, from hamlet to village to castle, asking every woman that he met the answer to the riddle. And still it was. A year later, he returned to the glen by the Green Chapel with a heavy heart, for he did not have the answer. As he approached the glen, he heard his name called out by a different voice. Arthur, King of the Britons. He looked, and sitting below a tree was a woman, a hag, the most disgusting hag he had ever seen. Her hair was all matted, and spiders ran in and out of it. Instead of teeth, she had two tusks, one that went down, one that went up. Her clothing stuck to her skin from the running sores thereon. The stench of the woman was worse than any stable, and there was liquid dripping from every opening in her face. Arthur, hast thou got the answer to thy riddle? No, I've asked every woman, almost every woman in the kingdom, but I do not have the one that burns my heart within me. If I give thee the answer, wilt thou give me whatever it is I ask? Very well, lady, if you can save my life, I will give you whatever it is you ask. Very well, Arthur, the answer is this. Of all that can be won or lost, what a woman wants most is sovereignty, the right to choose her own destiny, to decide for herself, to be under the will of no one but that of God. When Arthur heard this answer, his heart blazed within him. He went into the room, the glen by the Green Chapel, where the Green Knight was waiting. Arthur, hast thou got the answer to my riddle? Of all that can be won or lost, what a woman wants most is sovereignty, the right to choose her own destiny, to decide for herself, to be under the will of no one but that of God. When the Green Knight heard this answer, he cried a grisly cry, disappeared in a puff of smoke. Arthur remounted his steed and began to ride towards Camelot. Arthur, art thou not forgetting something? He wheeled the horse about, went back to the hag, helped her upon the horse, and then taking the bridle as though he were a common squire, Arthur, king of the Britons, walked to Camelot. When the sentry spied him, he sounded the trumpet. All the knights and ladies of the court came to the tops of the king's parapet. But their cries of welcome became cries of dismay when they saw the unseemly guest. Across the drawbridge, Arthur stabled the horse, and with the woman on his arm, went into the room of the round table where no knight would speak before Arthur explained the strange guest. He did so, explaining how the woman had saved his life that very day. And now, lady, I have told you I will give you whatever it is you want. What might that be? I would like Sir Gawain for my husband. 3 of the young women fainted dead away. Sir Gawain, handsomest and noblest of all the knights, wrote round to the lady, genuflected before her. Lady, it would be my honor if you would be my bride. Ah, Gawain, the pleasure will be mine. And so that very afternoon, Sir Gawain, handsomest and noblest of all the knights, and the hag Ragnell were married. And so it was, as the sun was setting, he led his lady up the staircase to the bridal chamber, lifted her across the threshold, placed her upon the bed, turned round to close the door, and when he faced the bed again, the disgusting hag was gone, and in her place a woman more beautiful than Gawain had ever seen. What magic is this? 'Tis a strange magic. Where is my wife? I am your wife. No, the Lady Ragnell is my wife. I am the Lady Ragnell, Gawain. I have been cast under a spell. Half the time I am as you saw me today, a disgusting hag. The rest of the time I am as you see me now, as I truly am. Now, Gawain, you must decide. Which would you rather have? A wife disgusting in the day and beautiful at night, or beautiful in the day and disgusting at night? Gawain searched his heart, and then he said to the woman, Lady, I choose that you decide for yourself. When he had said this, the woman's face broke into a smile. Tears came running down her cheeks. Gawain, thou hast done it. Thou hast given me what every woman wants most, sovereignty, the right to choose her own destiny, to decide for herself. And indeed, the spell was broken. And that couple that night surrendered their sovereignty to each other for a time. And if the English language had words to describe the joy and ecstasy of that night, this story would be much longer, but alas. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you at home for your patience, and thank you here for your patience. It is so wonderful to see you. And now I'm going to do a little bit of a costume change. And a time change. There we were in medieval England, or Wales, or part of the United Kingdom. And now we're going to travel across the pond to the new empire. Those of you who know about Philadelphia might be aware that there is a free Quaker meeting house down around 5th and down in Independence Mallways. And it all comes of, by the way, I'd like to thank the Quakers, the Germantown Monthly Meeting, for letting me use this lovely space, and for Joanne Sharpless for being the liaison, and for Rob Smith for doing the tech of this piece. Anyway, the Quakers when the Troubles began of the 1770s, there were some Quakers who wanted to bear arms against England, and many of them were thrown out of meetings for getting involved in the problem and not obeying the peace testimony. And one of the problems was they couldn't be buried in the Quaker graveyards. Lovely one right outside here. If you want to take a walk around after the show, or even now, They, they couldn't be buried. So the Free Quakers separated, Betsy Ross among them, and they built a wonderful meeting house, and they had their own meetings until after the war, it was reconciled again. But at that house down on Arch Street, there is a cornerstone on the second floor, and it's great. Free Quaker Meeting House, year of our Lord, 1783, year of the Empire, 8. New York City. Lower East Side, maybe, 1905, definitely. A woman in a flat. A flat is a word for probably a cheap apartment. She is standing in front of a couch, counting money. It's 1905, and O. Henry tells this story. $1.87, and 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer or the vegetable man or the butcher until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony such close dealing implied. 3 times Della counted it. $1.87. And the next day would be Christmas. There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl, so Della did it. Which instigates the moral reflection that life is made up of sobs, sniffles, and smiles, with sniffles predominating. While the mistress of the home is subsiding from the first stage to the second, take a look at the home. A furnished flat for $8 a week. It does not exactly beggar description, but it has that word on the lookout for the mendicancy squad. In the vestibule below, there is a letterbox, into which no letter will go. Also an electric button, from which no mortal finger can coax a ring. Also appertaining thereunto is a card bearing the name Mr. James Dillingham Young. The Dillingham had been flung to the breeze in a former period of prosperity when its possessor was making $30 a week. Now that the salary had shrunk to $20 a week, the letters on the word Dillingham looked blurred, as if they were seriously considering contracting down to a simple, modest, and unassuming D. But whenever Mr. James Dillingham Young reached the flat above, he was greatly hugged and called Jim by Della, already introduced to you as Della, which is all very good. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with a powder rag. She stood by the window, looked out dully at a gray cat walking a gray fence in a gray backyard. The next day would be Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 to buy Jim a present. She had been saving every penny she could for months with this result. $20 a week doesn't go far. Expenses had been greater than she had calculated. They always are. She had been planning months for something nice, something fine and rare and sterling, something just a little near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. Suddenly she whirled from the window and stood in front of the mirror. Her eyes were sparkling brilliantly, but her face had lost its color in 20 seconds. She reached up and let down her hair and let it fall to its full length. Now, there were 2 possessions that the James Dillingham Youngs took a mighty pride in. The first was Jim's gold watch, which had been his father's and his grandfather's. The second was Della's hair. If the Queen of Sheba had lived in the flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair out to dry out the window someday, just to depreciate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. If King Solomon had been the janitor with all of his riches piled up in the basement, Jim would have taken out his watch every time he passed, just to see the old king pluck at his beard with envy. And now Della's beautiful hair lay round about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. And then, nervously and quickly, she put it up again. She faltered for a moment and stood still while a tear or two fell on the worn red carpet. On went the old brown jacket, on went the old brown hat, and with a whirl of skirts and that curious sparkle still in her eyes, she floated down the stairs to the street, where she stopped. The sign read, Madame Sofronie, hair goods of all kind. One flight up, Della ran. She collected herself, panting. Madame, large, chilly, too white, hardly looked the Sofronie. Will you buy my hair? I buy hair. Take your hat off and let's have a look at the likes of it. Down rippled the brown cascade. Madame, weighing the mass with a practiced hand. $20. Oh, give it to me quick. The next 2 hours went by on rosy wings. Forget the hashed metaphor. Della was ransacking the stores looking for Jim's present. She found it at last. It surely had been made for Jim and for no one else, and there was no other like it in any of the stores, and she had turned all of them inside out. It was a platinum fob chain, simple and chaste in design, properly proclaiming its value by substance alone, and not by meretricious ornamentation, as all good things should do. It was even worthy of the watch. It was like him. As soon as she saw it, she knew he must have it. Quietness and value, the description applied to both. $21 they took from her for it, and she hurried home with the other 87 cents. With that chain on his watch, Jim would be tempted to look at the time in any company. As grand as the old watch was, he sometimes looked at it on the sly on account of the old leather strap he used instead of a chain. When Della got home, intoxication gave way a little to prudence and reason. She brought out her curling irons, lit the gas, and went about to repairing the ravages of generosity added to love. Tremendous task, dear friends, a mammoth task. In 40 minutes, her head was covered with little close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. She looked at herself in the mirror long, critically and carefully. If Jim doesn't kill me before he takes a second look at me, he'll say I look like a Coney Island chorus girl. Oh, what can I do? What can I do with $1.87? At 7 o'clock, the coffee was made and the frying pan was on the back of the stove, hot and ready to cook the chops. Jim was never late. Della folded the fob in her hand and sat on the corner of the table by the door he always came in. She had a little habit of saying simple, everyday prayers about the simplest everyday things. And now she said, Dear God, please make him think I'm still pretty. The door opened and Jim stepped in. He looked tired and very serious. Poor fellow, only 22 years old and to be burdened by a family. He needed a new overcoat and was without gloves. Jim stood stock still inside the door, as still and motionless as a setter on the scent of quail. His eyes were fixed on Della, and there was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not surprise, nor disappointment, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments she had been ready for. He just stared at her with that curious look on his face. Della wriggled off the table and went for him. Jim, darling, don't look at me that way. I've had my hair cut off and sold it because I couldn't live through Christmas without giving you a present. You won't mind, will you? It grows back so fast. I just had to do it. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful, nice present I've got for you. You've cut off your hair? Said Jim, as if he had not yet arrived at that patent fact after the most difficult mental labor. You cut it off and sold it. But, you like me just as well anyhow. I'm me without my hair, ain't I? Jim looked about the room curiously. You say your hair is gone. You needn't look for it, Jim. It's gone, I tell you. Gone and sold too. It's Christmas, boy. Be nice to me, for it went for you. Maybe the hairs on my head were numbered, she said with sudden curious sweetness. But nobody could count my love for you. Shall I put the chops on, Jim? Out of his trance, Jim seemed quickly to wake. He enfolded his Della. Let us, for a few moments, look at some inconsequential object in the other direction. $8 a week, or $1 million a year. What is the difference? A wit or a mathematician would give you the wrong answer. The Magi brought wonderful gifts, but this was not among them. This dark assertion will be illuminated later on. Jim reached into his overcoat pocket and pulled out a package, threw it on the table. Don't make any mistake about me, Del. There ain't nothing in the way of a haircut, or a shampoo, or a shave. It would make me like my girl any less. But if you unwrap that package, you'll see why you had me going at first. White fingers and nimble tore at the string and paper, and then a quick cry of joy, and then a quick feminine change to hysterical wails and tears, necessitating all of the comforting powers of the Lord of the Flat, for there lay the combs, the set of combs that Della had worshipped for long in a Broadway window. Beautiful combs, pure tortoiseshell with jeweled rims, just the shade to match the beautiful vanished hair. They were expensive combs, Della knew, and her heart had yearned. It strove for them without the least hope of possession, and now they were hers. But the adornments that would have matched the coveted adornments were gone. But she held them to her bosom, and after a while was able to look up with a dim eye and say, my hair grows back so fast, Jim. Oh! Della leaped up like a singed cat from the fireplace. Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him in the palm of her hand. The dull and precious metal seemed to glow in a reflection of her bright and ardent spirit. Isn't it a dandy, Jim? I looked all over town for find it. You're going to have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it. Jim. Instead of obeying, Jim flopped down on the shabby couch, put his hands back of his head, and said, Del, let's put our Christmas presents away for now. They're too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy the combs. So, why don't you put them chops on? The Magi were wise men. Wonderfully wise men who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents, and being wise, their presents were no doubt wise ones, perhaps with the privilege of exchange in case of duplication. And here I have lamely related to you the uneventful chronicle of two foolish children in a flat who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. But in a final word to the wise of these days, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these are wisest. Of all who give and receive gifts, among these are wisest. Everywhere they are wisest. They are the Magi. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, O. Henry, Gift of the Magi. It's nothing like that piece, I must say. So, hot off the press, Christmas Sonnets by Ed Stivender. For the last 20 years, instead of a Christmas card, I've written a sonnet and sent it to my friends. And my friends have often said, "Say, Ed, you ought to get them published." And so I did. I got a publisher by the name of Ed Stivender to, he does a thing, does a kind of a vanity press. I'll read you just one thing. And this is available, of course, on my website, and you can get a copy for yourself. This one's called Blame Game, which there's been a lot of blaming going on since November 5th, and here's where it all began. Since Adam ate the apple, there has been blame, keen consequence of sin like guilt and shame. That man denied responsibility. "It's all her fault," he whined. "Don't look at me." Eve pointed to the serpent. Darkness reigned. Expelled from Adam's bliss. No. Expelled from Eden's bliss. The entrance chained. But God foretold, her seed will crush his head. The devil snickered slyly as he fled. "They'll never vanquish me with human tools. We'll ever blame each other, feckless fools, until one fool of grace gives her consent, and new light quickens, cause for merriment. Thus Satan meets his match, his traps fordone, 'neath fabled stables thatch. Here comes the sun." There's notes in the back explaining all these references. Let me just show you what the notes look like. Kind of sad that you have to, in hopes that people will spend the time so they can understand the poem. John Donne didn't have to do that. Thank you. Anyway, they're on the web, edstivender.com, for $12, postage paid. But if I have a couple today, if you want one, it's $10. I'm sorry that we're not in Paris. Once upon a time, there was a young boy named Jacques in the south of France. Jacques was a farmer, at least he was supposed to be a farmer. His parents had been farmers before they died in the Black Plague. His grandparents with whom he lived were farmers, and so Jacques was supposed to be a farmer, but he wasn't a very good one. He wasn't lazy, he just got distracted easily. He'd be plowing the field when all of a sudden he'd stop, look around, reach in, pick up 1 potato, 2 potatoes, 3 potatoes, and begin to juggle, hoping that no one was watching. But of course, someone was always watching. "There's that no-account juggler. He'll never amount to nothing. That bum." And Jacques would go back until he got distracted again. 1, 2, 3, 4. He never did 4. But when the jongleurs came from Paris, he was at the town square every day, watching their tricks, listening to their songs, trying to learn their stories. He would bring produce from his grandparents' farm and share it with the jongleurs, the troubadours from Paris. And in return, they would teach him their tricks, how to juggle 4, how to juggle 5, how to do that turn of a dance, how to do that spin of a song. And after a week or so, Jacques was becoming quite a juggler, and he decided that he would go to the great city of Paris when he was old enough and good enough and become the greatest juggler in all of France. Then he went back to his work, always thinking about the possibility. And so one spring, he got his juggling things, put them over his shoulder, and started off for the great city of Paris. The jongleurs had told him of their patroness, a woman who lived in a magnificent castle on an island in the middle of the Seine River. They just called her Notre Dame, Our Lady. And he decided that he would go to Notre Dame and put himself under the care of that very lady. And so they also told him about how fancy the people were in Paris and how magnificent the buildings were. And they were right. When he arrived in Paris, everything that they said was true. He went to the castle in the middle of the Seine River, Ile de Notre Dame. He stood in front of that grand cathedral, put down his juggling things, reached it, and began to juggle. 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, 5 potato, 6 potato, 7 potato, or. And then he told his stories. And then he did his dances. And then at the end of his routine, he took his cap off his head and bowed and felt the money jingling into the cap. He looked. He sent most of the money back to his grandparents by the king's post. He saved a couple of pennies for the monks whose monastery he would stay. And then with 3 pennies, he walked inside the great cathedral, left moving the doors, the heavy oaken doors, leaving his juggling things in the back, and up the aisle through a rainbow of stained glass light. To there was the lady. She was standing with a crystal ball in her hand. Jacques knelt down, put 3 pennies in the cup, and lit 1, 2, 3 candles, 1 for his countrymen, that they would always be free, 1 for his grandparents, and 1 for himself, that he would become the greatest juggler of all of Paris. Said 3 Hail Marys, Je vous salue Marie, pleine de grâce, le Seigneur est avec vous, and then tiptoed out and went to the monastery where he would stay. Next day he was back, and the next day after that. Same thing every day, send most of the money back to his grandparents, lit 3 candles. One day, as he was juggling and doing his routines, suddenly there were 2 gentlemen crossing the square. Jacques didn't know who they were, but he overheard them talking about whether a thing could be secular and sacred at the same time. And Jacques said, excuse me, sirs, I am doing just a secular thing as a juggler, but sometimes when I do it, I think of sacred thoughts. Oh, said Peter Abelard, the great scholar of the University of Paris. Oh, said his companion, Francis of Assisi. What do you mean? Well, when I juggle 1, I think of the one God who made us all. When I juggle 2, I think of how God created us. Male and female, he created us. And when I juggle 3, I think of the Holy Trinity, God, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. When I juggle 4, I think of the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. When I juggle 5, I think of the 5 wise virgins who trimmed their wicks as they waited for the bridegroom. When I juggle 6, I think of the 6 points of the Mogen David, the Star of David, the Shield of Solomon. When I juggle 7, I think of the 7 sacraments. Jacques was a Catholic. When I juggle 8, I think of the 8 Beatitudes. When I juggle 9, I think of the 9 lepers who did not come and thank the Lord for curing them. When I juggle 10, I think of the 10 Commandments. When I juggle 11, I think of the 11 apostles that stayed faithful. And when I juggle 12, I think of the 12 tribes of Israel. When I juggle 13, can you juggle 13? Not yet, but I'm getting better every day. Well, thank you, juggler, for your dissertation on the sacred and profane, and off they went. Summer passed. Winter came. Feast of St. Thomas, December 21st, Julian calendar, and no one was watching Jacques. Everyone was running around Paris, getting ready for the feast of Christmas that would take place in a few days. They were getting presents or making presents that they would lay before the lady in the great cathedral. Everyone had a present, except Jacques. He had no money. He had nothing. And so it was, he kept juggling for free. And then the Christmas Eve, the 24th, he watched all the people of Paris streaming into the great cathedral. When they were all in, Jacques took his juggling things and he went in, didn't have to open those oaken doors because the king's guards were there, each with a sword in their hand, opened the door, snickered as Jacques walked in. He stood in the back and watched all of the people in the procession of the offertory bringing their gifts. He saw some of the people from his old village bringing fruits of the field, and some of the monks taking wines and cheeses. Some of the burghers and merchants bringing presents from far-off lands, and some of the nobles bringing presents, each better than the other. The king himself had offered a gold filigree model of the great cathedral himself, studded with diamonds. Everybody had a present except Jacques. And then it hit him. Well, he grabbed his juggling things and ran up the aisle, knelt in front of that great lady with that crystal ball in her hand, and he pulled up 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, 5 potato, 6 potato. That's that no-account juggler. I told you it'd never amount to nothing. Blasphemy, sacrilege. Guards! He heard the guards coming after him. He was juggling as hard as he could, and the guards grabbed him by the arms, lifted him to his feet, and all the juggling things fell to the ground. Jacques held his hands out, thinking that he'd never see them again because those guards had their swords. But then all of a sudden, everything was quiet. There wasn't a sound. Jacques heard the rustle of silk, felt something fall into his hand, and he looked up, and there was the lady, and she was looking at Jacques with her hands outstretched and saying, "Oh, Jacques, it isn't what you have, not even for what you can do. It's for who you are, when you are all that you are, that your lady in heaven loves you." And everything was as it was before, except Jacques was changed. He looked down, and there was that crystal ball in his hand. That night, he had dinner with the king, and nobody ever called him a no-account juggler after that, not even himself. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, Ed, we heard about this chess game nativity. When are you going to show us the chess game nativity? Oh, I'm glad you asked that question, boys and girls. It's time for the chess game nativity. I started doing radio in 1970-something, and for WWUH. And I thought around Christmas time, gee, wouldn't it be nice to do a radio presentation of the stable scene? And so, one night at the Myth America radio show, which I said, okay, kids, ask your parents to bring out the chess set, and I'll show you how to tell a story. You get these 3 guys, 2 white guys and a black guy, and you put them in the east. Where is the east? Which, the sun is setting over there, so I think, so put them in the east. Then you get these 2 guys and put them in the fields. The electromagnetic field. And then you get these 4 castles and make a stable. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's crazy. Make a stable with castles, but it's very special stable because it's here that the King of Kings was born. And then you're just about ready to tell the story of the first Christmas starring the Queen. Once upon a time, a long time ago, was a young lady named Mary. She was the most beautiful, most graceful lady that ever existed. She was engaged to a guy named Joseph, and they lived in Nazareth, in Galilee, in the north. One day, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Who are you? I am an angel of the Lord. You're kidding. No, angels aren't allowed to kid. If it is your will, the Holy Spirit will come upon you. You will conceive and bear a child. His name is Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. If it's all right with you. Behold the handmaid of the Lord. Anything God says is fine with me. Congratulations. Good luck explaining it to Joseph. Bum, 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 bum. Boom, 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 boom. Working all day in the carpenter shop. Going over to see my fiance. Knock, knock. Hello, Mary. Hello, Joseph. What's new? Wonderful news. The Messiah is finally coming. You're kidding. No, I promise he's coming. When's he going to arrive? In about 9 months. Oh, wonderful. How is he going to arrive? I'm going to bear him as a son. What? The Holy Spirit has come upon me, and I will bear Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us as a son. Mary, are you pregnant? Yes. I suppose you can safely say our engagement is off forever. Goodbye, slam. I don't know what I'd do. I could have her executed, stoned to death. That's in the Torah. I could divorce her quietly. Oh, I'm not sure what I should do. I guess I better sleep on it. And it was a good thing, too, because it was time for a visit. Ah! Joseph, 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 wake up, O ye of little faith. Who are you? I am an angel of the Lord. Everything that Mary says is true. You're kidding. No, angels aren't allowed to kid. I guess I better go back and apologize. Huh? I guess you better. Come in. Mary, can you ever forgive me for doubting you? Of course. We could still be married? Of course. And so Mary and Joseph were married, and they lived in Nazareth, in Galilee, in the north. One day, hey, by order of the emperor, all Jews are to report to the homes of their forefathers. Joseph, that means you have to go all the way to Bethlehem. By order of the emperor. So, Mary got on the donkey because the Volvo was in the shop. Headed down to Bethlehem. Knocked at the door of an inn. Yeah, what do you want? Excuse us, sir. We're looking for a place to stay. You got reservations? No, we didn't know we'd need the reservations. You got to be kidding me, mister. You expect to stay at the Bethlehem Holiday Inn on Christmas Eve? Well, sir, we didn't know it would be this busy. Well, there's a stable out back, but next Christmas, make reservations. Thank you, sir. And so they went round to the stable, and Joseph said, "Smells like a stable in here." It's okay, Joseph. Anything God says is fine with me. And so Mary lay down on the straw, and Joseph next to her. And when her time had come, you have to close your eyes for this part. Okay, open your eyes. Oh, Mary, he's beautiful. May I hold him? Of course. Joseph held the baby. Yippee! Yahoo! Put him back in the manger. They weren't the only ones that were happy. Yippee, yahoo! Shepherds abiding in the field. Give me. Shepherds abiding in the field. Give me a watch over your flock by night. Hey, Chauncey, look at that. I think it's an angel. Yeah, I think you're right, Edgar. Wonder what he's trying to tell us. Shepherds, good news to all men and women. There was born this night a baby, a Savior, Emmanuel, God with us. You're kidding. No, angels aren't allowed to kid. So get your ass, or whatever means of transportation you have, down to Bethlehem. And so they went down to Bethlehem, and they knocked at the door. Come in. And they each had a chance to hold him, and they each had a chance to be blessed by him. And Chauncey said to Edgar, "Hey, Edgar, it smells like a stable in here. Let's clean this place up." And it was a good thing, too, because it was time for another visit. This must be the place. Come in. It smells like a stable in here. Good thing we brought the frankincense. And so they lit the frankincense. Stable smelled like a palace. For there, so it was, the King of Kings was born. They gave Mary and Joseph some gold and some myrrh. Don't know what they did with the myrrh, but they did have a Merry Christmas. But with some of the gold, they went down to the 7-Eleven store and got potato chips and pretzels and Diet Pepsi, and they had a party. They say the party lasted for 12 days. People say to me, hey, Ed, sure, it's good to tell a story with little toys, but it's 2024. Don't you have any more modern ways of telling this story? Well, as a matter of fact, I do. If you give me a snack, I'll give you a rap. Sounds good. I said, oh, once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a baby born in Bethlehem. He was born in the stable on the donkey's dinner table, and the magic man came to visit him. They brought him gold and frankincense and myrrh. Said the boy's going to be a king. Mary just smiled, let him hold the child, but she didn't say anything because she knew who he was, and she knew what he could do. Chaka Khan. Nearby, there were shepherds abiding in the field. They were keeping a watch on their flock. Looked up to the sky, their heads began to reel. When they saw what they saw, they got quite a shock. There was 1,000 angels in the sky. I said 1,000 angels singing hidey-hi, singing hidey-hi. I said hidey-ho, that's your part. Hidey-hi. I said hidey-ho. Well, look out. The shepherds came down to the town. They found the little stable still. The drummer boy was there, Santa Claus with light. The stable was filled. Well, just then the party started, because didn't you know it was the very first Christmas day? Well, the drummer hit the drum, and the piper hit the pipes, and everyone began to swing and sway. They were jamming the jive for Jesus coming in tight on the chorus. They looked up to the angels, said, sing hallelujah for us, and they sang. Hallelujah. Said, hidey-hi. One more time. Well, look out. They gave each other presents, and Santa got some too. Ever since that day, he tries to give his away. I hope he gives some presents to you, singing hidey, 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 hi. Said hidey, hidey, oh, one last time. Hidey, 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 boy. Now, when you say you're going to do something, you sort of have to do it. And so I'm going to have to do what I said in the advertising for this piece of this show, of an improvisation based on audience suggestions. And where is that banjo bag? No, I need the bag. Oh, but since I have the banjo, let's do a little Beethoven, shall we? Famous fairy tale. I need a character, I need a pet peeve about Christmas.
That everyone thinks is always about gifts.
Okay, all right. I need a fairy tale. Everybody think yourself a guess. How about a thing that you really love about Christmas?
The love and joy that's around for it, the spirit of Christmas.
Okay. All right. Fairy tale.
The Red Riding Hood.
The Red Riding Hood it is. How about a disgusting habit?
Picking your nose.
Okay. I don't know if I planted that seed, but I'll picking your nose. We got it. And the last thing I need is a slogan or a saying that you would hear, a slogan or a saying or a wise.
Just do it for Nike.
We're gonna let some of the other people do have a thing here, a saying or a slogan.
Go for it.
Go for it. Okay. So we've got. Think it's about gifts. Is that what it was?
All about gifts.
All about gifts. It's all about gifts. The rosy glow you have from feeling Christmas time. Red Riding Hood. Picking your nose. And what else? Anything else?
Go for it.
Go for it. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Go for it. But there's no more time. I'm sorry, friends. It was almost Christmas, and Grandma was sick. Little Red, said her mother, I want you to get something for Grandma to cheer her up. Ma, Christmas isn't just about gifts. Well, what is it about if it's not about gifts? Oh, it's about the good feelings. Well, I think your grandma would feel really good if you got her something nice at the store. Oh, all right, I guess I'll do that. And so Little Red got on her Little Red motorcycle. She had her Little Red Riding Hood. It was a riding hood because she was a rider, and riding leathers and riding vest, and brum, 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 and she headed down towards, give me a store. Kmart. And she pulled up in front of Kmart and said, oh, it's still open. I thought they were all going to close. And she went into Kmart and she looked high and low for her grandmother. And then she thought, oh, I know. Last time I was with Grandma, she needed something. And so Little Red got that thing. She got a big box of that thing. And she headed back to her grandmother's house. And she knocked on their grandmother's door, but inside there was the wolf. I don't know where the wolf came from, but he's there now. And the wolf said, come in, Little Red. And she came inside and said, oh, Grandma, what a big teeth you have. The better to, oh, Grandma, what a big nose you have. Oh, the better. And then she remembered that the thing that her grandmother needed more than anything else was tissues. Because her grandmother always had a snotty nose, always picked her nose, and she knew it was going to make her grandmother happy. And so she held up the tissues and looked at the wolf in the eye and said, I don't think you're really my grandmother. Oh, really? Well, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to go for it. And she took a knife and stabbed the wolf and killed the wolf. Hey, it's no violenter than the other Grimm stories. No, she gave the wolf to a wolf protection a wolf rescue place, and the wolf lived happily ever after. And then she heard, now I've got you, now I'm going to eat you. Now I've got you, now I'm going to eat you. She opened the closet door, and there was her grandmother. Now I've got you. And Little Red Riding Hood and her mother and her grandmother and her wolf got saved by the fairy tale police. They all live, as I hope you will live, happily ever after. Thank you. 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 Oh, I forgot. Brandon O'Sullivan has been doing this, the technology of this, and I forgot to remind you of the reason we're doing this for Project Home. And I'm wondering, Brandon, if it's too late to play the thing about Project Home. Or I could vamp.
Project Home continually responds to the needs that we're seeing of folks who are experiencing homelessness right now.
Homelessness is increasing around the country and in Philadelphia. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, more than 653,000 people were experiencing homelessness on a single night in January in 2023. That is astonishingly high, and it's also a record. Here in Philadelphia, about 4,700 people are homeless on any given night. That includes about 4,000 people who are sheltered and about 700 people who are unsheltered. So homelessness in Philadelphia is definitely increasing. When people are admitted to hospitals for treatment of opioid use disorder, they're often discharged with a need for significant long-term aftercare.
For the first time, we have the three major hospitals in the city of Philadelphia, Temple, Jefferson, and Penn, working together, where they're going to have emergency room doctors available at a third-party housing location, which is our collective.
The respite beds at Sacred Heart are part of the Eastat-Lubert Collaborative, which is going to help and support the Hospital to Homes initiative. And so those who decide that they want recovery and want support recovery would be able to go straight into those beds. Eventually, as they are stable, they then can either continue on to permanent housing in our continuum or somewhere else in Philadelphia.
What gives me hope about the Eastat-Lubert Collaborative is that there won't be so many people suffering on the streets. People want to get better. There's just nowhere for them to go. And having treatment and housing is the key.
A lot of our peers have observed the terrible situations that have taken place for other folks' kids and family members. And this is a call to action, but we're going to need a lot more help past our gift to make this a reality.
We don't have enough beds in Philadelphia, so we need to ensure that we have enough entry-level beds for people to come in, whether they are chronically homeless or newly homeless. So that's why we're building that residence in Sacred Heart. That's why we're building more permanent affordable housing, as well as entry-level shelter beds, so that when people are interested in housing and ready to come in, those beds are available for them.
I really wish more people had an opportunity to be in my shoes.
We don't need a scientist to find the cure. This is something that a little bit of sweat equity and money, we can do this.
And conviction.
By getting involved in this and putting time and effort to help, you're not helping that person only, but you're helping many others.
My life today is different. I don't have the desire to use, and I'm in a great place of amazing mercy to live life on life terms.
I would encourage others to get involved supporting Project Home, because Project Home has demonstrated with the resources that have been given to Project Home that they're good stewards of those resources. So when you support Project Home, you should have a high degree of confidence that the money will be well used.
Why Project Home? Because we are relentless in our drive to end and prevent homelessness.
It's important to have your own home to go to. Everyone should have that right to go home.
As I look to the future, I know that that commitment, that courage, that strength and generosity will continue to support and enable Project Home and all of our community to thrive.
Thank you, Brandon. That's where this money is going. If you have more money, put it in there, and we'll send it to Project Home. Meanwhile, we got cookies and cider. Because I mean, it's stovetop without food. I was taught that by my friends from Rose Valley. Megan Hicks is here, wonderful storyteller, and her wonderful husband Jack are here, and Carla Childs, the person that does the theater here at the Quaker meeting, and John Hickey and John Rafter are here that I went to high school with. Wow. So I'm a happy cat. Oh, and Joe Quinn and Ed Deegan, who were my roommates in college, and so I'm really a happy camper. Thank you all for coming out. Now, we'll see if there's anybody on Zoom that wants to say hello. Oh, I'm sorry. Ladies' room. Yes, there's all gender bathroom there, ladies' room there, men's room there. I'm gonna get on Zoom for a second to say goodbye to my friends on Zoom. Thank you guys for coming. Hello, you guys. Thank you for coming out. Hello. Boy, it's been I'm really honored by your presence on Zoom, you guys.
Hi, Ed and company. You were wonderful as usual.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Most sincerely, I don't know how you do it all and keep up the energy, but very
Ed.
special, very special.
Well, thanks. It's probably a disease, but I do enjoy doing this work.
Thank you, Ed. Just
So
terrific.
nice
Thank you
to
so much.
use this house for this.
Thank
Ed,
you,
you are
Ed.
the king of angelic improvisations.
I'm trying to get this.
Well said, Joe.
How do I get to anyway, thank you, everybody. Charles, Carol, Sarah, Jessica, and I hope the kids are okay.